Denver RTD has 53 miles of mainline electrified rail. That is more than the entire country of Canada. So if you find someone on the internet talking down about your system, I think you can talk a little shit back to them. To me, Denver is an interesting city because, in my opinion, it's not usually the first city people think of when they think of rail infrastructure. And when it comes to the last 20 years, Denver has done a lot more than pure cities. Speaking of the Denver region, I was actually visiting quite recently. Full disclosure, I was there because I was invited to the Suntrain event with Xcel Energy. So first, let's start with that topic and how it relates to the rail industry in Colorado and Denver. I had two events to go to related to Suntrain and Xcel Energy. The first was at their Cherokee generating plant, which used to be a coal-fired power plant and is now a gas plant. But other than walking around and getting some B-roll shots, I was mainly there for the press conference that was going to happen slightly later in the morning. Here we had folks from Suntrain presenting their project and all of the details, the Xcel CEO talking about the cooperation with Suntrain, and finally the Colorado governor actually talking about the entire project and how it's going to integrate itself into the local power network in the area. Later that day, we went out to Eaton, Colorado, which is sort of in the middle of nowhere. This is where the demo unit was shown off that you might have seen in the previous video in the Bay Area. Speaking of the previous video, let's go over the operations that they want to conduct in Colorado. Basically, down by Pueblo, there is a ton of renewable energy, both from wind energy and solar. There's so much energy, in fact, that they do not have enough transmission lines between Pueblo to Denver. So generally, yes, the power company wants to build more transmission lines between Pueblo and Denver. The problem is, between the permitting process, NIMBYs, and right-of-way acquisition, it's going to take about 10 to 15 years to actually build enough transmission lines to fix this issue. Suntrain's plan is basically to operate during that time while they're building the transmission lines to take all of that wasted green energy and move it up to Denver where it can be used. Yes, I'm aware from a first glance this is a very goofy concept, but this can actually net 88% efficiency at moving energy, which is actually kind of decent. Now, before we move on to the next topic, I want you to think about this. Suntrain is getting the freight railroads to work with the power company. Read between the lines a little bit here. I think it's a good thing that these two will be working together in the future, and possibly other things might come out of that. Anyway, I'm looking forward to keeping up with the whole Suntrain project, and apparently they're going to be putting together their entire first unit train this year. So let's hope to get behind the scenes again to see how that will turn out. Now finally, let's talk about RTD. In my opinion, there are aspects of RTD that deserve criticism, mainly the bus frequencies. But in my opinion, the rail system and the light rail system are not that bad. I think that it's basically a miracle that an all-electrified commuter rail system was built in the last 20 years in a North American city. I really don't think that enough people give Denver credit for that, because there are some cities, won't name a few, that can't even build or start a commuter rail system, let alone get one that just runs 30-minute frequencies. I think the one other big thing that a lot of advocates forget in our space is that it's very easy, most of the time, to generally build bigger buildings near transit. But it is very, very hard to start running a train, especially on a new right-of-way somewhere. So just having the train in the first place is a huge success, and then later on you can always build the TOD. I made a video back in 2022 about RTD and sort of the failure of TOD around stations in Denver in general. And while that's still a problem, there has been major improvements around certain stations. Another thing that was really nice versus my visit in 2022 is just the amount of ridership in all of the trains and transit vehicles was way up. Obviously, during 2022, you were still dealing with COVID-era transit, so riding the A line from the airport to downtown was a massively different experience than it was in 2022. There's definitely more to talk about with RTD, especially with the extensions that should happen like the G and B lines. But for now, I think this is a good place to leave it off, of that it's a system that should be praised more than it is. And the last topic I want to talk about in this video is one that is both important for freight and for passenger, and it's both important for Denver and for the state of Colorado. So, entering the Front Range is a tunnel called Moffat Tunnel, and it's located about here outside of Denver. Amtrak's California Zephyr and the Ski Train run through this tunnel. Union Pacific, the freight company, operates it and maintains the tunnel, but they actually do not own the tunnel. You see, back when the tunnel was under construction, the state of Colorado actually needed to fund the tunnel to complete it. So the state of Colorado actually owns the tunnel, and the tunnel is on a 99-year lease to Union Pacific. That lease was initially issued in 1926. So do you see where this is going? Yeah, it actually expires next year. So now the state of Colorado actually has a huge bargaining piece over Union Pacific to do different things. One is running a passenger train to Craig or Steamboat Springs along that subdivision, and the other is possibly forcing some environmental regulations upon UP using the tunnel, aka electrification or some other subset of that. I recommend following Moffat and the negotiations surrounding it very closely, because this is going to determine a lot of future Colorado rail projects, or at least passenger services within the state. And with that, I'd like to wrap this video up. Now, there are a few Amtrak things that I do want to mention in a different video in the near future. I actually want to talk about Union Station and the Front Range corridor that Amtrak's supposed to run, at least in the next 2 or 3 years. There's a big thing or big issue with Union that I want to talk about, but that's going to require a whole nother video. So if you want to stick around for that, I'd recommend subscribing or staying around. Otherwise, I'd like to, of course, thank my Patreons. They're very, very patient because I've been very behind on current videos. I promise there's going to be a blitz of videos coming out very soon. Otherwise, thank you guys, and I'll see you in the next one.